Welcome back to the Business War Room podcast. This is our first episode of the 2025 season. I want to wish everybody a happy new year. So I've been receiving email after email about this topic. It's basically in New York City right now, but don't be fooled. This will be implemented in all major cities across the United States if it's allowed to go through. Those that don't know what I'm talking about, it's the congestion pricing tax that the left-wing Democrats want to pass on not only small businesses, but emergency workers, first responders, etc., which is ludicrous, in my opinion. What needs to be done is the MTA, which hemorrhages billions of dollars, needs to be audited and those held responsible removed from the top because it's apparent that they're fucking incompetent and they don't know how to run a business. So imagine driving to work, picking up your kids from school, or simply running errands only to be met with a new hefty tax. That's the reality New York City is poised to face on January 6th with the implementation of congestion pricing. So congestion pricing, while touted as solution to traffic, will ultimately harm small businesses, drive up consumer costs, and disproportionately impact lower income individuals. I call this the small business squeeze, which includes increased costs. Small businesses, which is the backbone of our economy, will bear the brunt of congestion pricing. Delivery costs will skyrocket, making it harder for them to compete with the larger corporations. It will ultimately reduce foot traffic. Customers may opt to avoid congested areas, leading to decreased foot traffic for all these small businesses. This will lead to exactly what happened during the pandemic: potential for major closures. Many small businesses operate on thin margins already. Increased costs could force them to close their doors forever. So who's going to get screwed here? As usual, the consumer. The consumer is always the burden. Higher prices. So businesses will pass on the additional cost of congestion pricing to the consumers, leading to higher prices for goods and services. Not to mention the limited mobility. For those who rely on their cars, congestion pricing will restrict their mobility, making it more difficult to access essential services and opportunities. See, these low-life liberals always talking about equality, but this is the unequal impact, the disproportionate burden for lower-income individuals who often rely on their cars for work and transportation. And this will be hit by the hardest by this congestion pricing. So now everyone knows that the elites, they'll receive exemptions. Wealthier individuals who have the means to pay the fee or use alternative transportation will be largely unaffected. This is all an abuse of the system. The potential for more abuse by those who can afford to pay the fee but choose not to is a serious concern. See, New York City's already strapped. A high cost of living. New Yorkers already face high cost of living. Congestion pricing will exacerbate this issue. And just how you always hear these people flapping about lack of affordable housing, many New Yorkers struggle to afford housing. So these additional financial burdens will only worsen this crisis. Congestion pricing is a misguided policy that will harm the very people it claims to help. We must stand united to protect our city and its residents. So let me give you a little background on the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, the MTA, that's in crisis. While New Yorkers struggle with rising costs and deteriorating transit conditions, the MTA continues to mismanage billions of dollars, as I stated before. I want to talk about the MTA's systemic failures, from rampant fraud and abuse to a lack of accountability and transparency. Let's begin with fare evasion, a billion-dollar drain. The scale of the problem is fare evasion, which costs the MTA, actually the taxpayers, over $700 million annually. This figure is staggering, especially considering the MTA's ongoing financial struggles. This impacts all riders. Fare evasion forces the MTA to raise fares for honest riders, making public transportation less affordable for those who rely on it most. Now let's get into their wasteful spending and overtime abuse. There's been countless overtime scandals throughout city agencies. The MTA has a long history of overtime abuse, with employees racking up exorbitant hours and taxpayers footing the bill as usual. Their inefficient projects, billions of dollars have been wasted on poorly planned and executed projects, such as the 2nd Avenue subway, which was unnecessary. Let's touch on the lack of accountability and transparency, the elite mismanagement. The MTA's leadership has consistently failed to address the agency's problems. Instead of focusing on solutions, they prioritize self-preservation and lavish salaries, which leads into their budgeting. The MTA's budgeting process is a joke, making it difficult for taxpayers to understand how their money is being spent. And this leads into the impact of the riders, deteriorating conditions. The MTA's financial woes have led to deteriorating conditions on subways and buses, including broken equipment, delayed service, and very unsafe environments, which leads me into the increased crime. The decline of the MTA has contributed to a rise in a crime on public transportation, making it less safe for riders. So what can you do as a New Yorker? What is the call of action? First, demand an audit. We need a full independent audit of the MTA's finances to uncover waste, fraud, and abuse. Second, hold leadership accountable. MTA executives who have failed to deliver must be held accountable for their actions. Third, support fair fares. Fight for fair fares and oppose any attempts to raise them further. So in conclusion, the MTA's crisis is a direct result of mismanagement, corruption, and a lack of accountability. By demanding change and holding the MTA accountable, we can restore our transit system and ensure a better future for New York City. I want to thank you all for tuning in to this episode of the Business War Room Podcast. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and God bless.